What's going on, guys? Capine here and welcome back. And in this video I'll be featuring Cofagrigus in the Great League. With the recent buff to ice types such as Dugong, Alolan Sandslash, and of course Walrein, Medicham has become stronger than ever before and is absolutely everywhere. So to combat this, I ran the Coffin, and let me tell you, it definitely put in some work. The catch, however, is that Noctowl is also everywhere. So that's why I'm running this team in an ABB style, where against most leads, I'll be swapping in my Sableye to check for that Noctowl in the back. And with that, let's get right into the battles. Alright, getting to the first battle, we lead Dugong into Alolan Sandslash. This matchup is a lot better for Dugong with energy, so we're going to save swap right away into our Sableye, which also allows us to check for that Noctowl in the back. My opponent is staying in, so perhaps their anti-fighter is something different than the Noctowl. My opponent is going to fire off a move. I'm going to let it go, and it is the Drill Run. That's going to do quite a bit of damage to my Sableye, and my opponent just barely outpaces to Ice Punch. So now I am forced to give up a shield here, but I can Shadow Claw down and leave with a ton of energy to throw at whatever they come in with, which is going to be their own Sableye. So now this Foul Play is going to do a lot of damage or get their first shield, and it lands. My opponent saving 2 shields for what they have in the back, and the target has been acquired. Cofagrigus has come in to absolutely shut down this 2-shield Medicham. And now I fire off the Shadow Ball on CMP tie with the Medicham, which will one-shot it unless they give up a shield, which they do. We get their first shield, and I'm perfectly fine letting this go. The Coffin is tanky, so it can take that Psychic no problem, as well as this Ice Punch. So we're going to let that go too. And now I'm over farming here, letting my Coffin get as low as possible so the Sableye does not get any extra farm. If my opponent chooses to let this move go, which they don't, they give up their final shield, recognizing they need their Medicham for the Dugong. But it's too little too late at this point, as the Medicham is very low. The Coffin put in a ton of work there, where I can easily tank this Foul Play. Fire off this Drill Run to take out the Sableye. So Drill Run comes through, is just enough to take out the Sableye, and now we can Ice Shard down the Medi for a good game. GG's to my opponent. Next battle, we lead Dugong into G-Fisk. So just like last time, also a better matchup for Dugong with energy. We're going to safe swap right into our Sableye. And my opponent is staying in, so I'm going to throw this Foul Play before my opponent gets to the potential Earthquake. We want to offset that 1-turn desync on my switch in. And now this is enough for the Earthquake. I decide to call a bait, and they land the Earthquake. That does so much energy to my Sableye. And now I'm going to overfarm, throw this Foul Play on the CMP tie to the Rock Slide. And that does force the first shield from my opponent. And at this point, I'm okay letting my Sableye go. They didn't bring in a Noctowl to the Sableye, so I'm hard reading that they don't have a Noctowl in the back. So now I'm going to come in with my Kofa and get a huge energy advantage. I will have to shield once to respect the potential Earthquake, which I do, and it is the Earthquake. So now I am able to farm all the way down. My opponent recognizes that, and they swap into a Toxicroak. Oh no. If this is their best answer to the Kofa, then I could only wonder what their third Pokemon is. This is only a Mud Bomb, as that Shadow Ball does massive damage. Down goes the Toxicroak. What is it? Show me that Medicham. Show me that Medicham. It's the Medicham. We're going to throw this Shadow Ball right away. This is going to do absolutely massive damage to the Medicham, so it does get their shield. And here I do wait a turn to potentially watch for a catch, but my opponent doesn't go for the catch and throws right away. That's why it wasn't a CMP tie. So we wait a turn again afterwards, see that counter go through, land this Shadow Ball, which almost one-shots the Medicham. Shadow Claw down, and our opponent concedes the match. GG's. Kofa just putting in tons of work those past 2 games. Next battle, we see a Bastiodon on the lead. We're going to swap into our Sableye, and we're going to load up and throw this Foul Play right here. Unfortunately, it is on bad timing. I tried to go for the CMP tie, but My opponent smartly overfarms and is able to get one extra. So that's a bit of a misplay by me. That's perfectly fine, as we can still barely survive this Stone Edge and get off our next foul play. And what is often paired with a Bastiodon? That's right, Medicham. So that's why I swapped in my Sableye there to get some chip, and now I'm going to bring in my Kofa to get a ton of energy. I will have to shield once, and I'm going to commit to a very ambitious farm down on the Bastiodon, which we are able to get. We leave with 100 energy. In comes the Shadow Victory Bell from my opponent. Everybody knows this team, the Bastiodon, Shadow Victory Bell, Medicham. Should have gone for the Dark Pulse right there, save me a turn of energy, but we will see how this match plays out. Now you see here, I hard swap into my Dugong because I need to lure out that Medicham so that when my Dugong eventually goes down, I'm able to get more farm on my Cofagrigus to potentially get to more moves before those Shadow Razor Leafs take out my Coffin. So I will throw that off that Icy Wind. And I was thinking about Ice Sharding down there, but my opponent smartly lets their Medicham take that extra damage, so I can't Ice Shard down, but also can't get extra farm on the Kofa. But this Shadow Claw does go through, take out the Medicham, and I'm going to throw this Dark Pulse right away, and now it's going to be a race. Am I going to be able to reach this next Dark Pulse in time? We get there, but it's a CMP tie. We fall just short. Little bit of a heartbreaker on that one, as the Victory Bell takes us out, but GG's to my opponent. Next battle, we lead Dugong into another Bastiodon. Time for redemption here, as we're going to swap into our Sableye right away. And it is a little tricky throwing on good timing when you swap in and you get that one turn desync. As you see, I throw on bad timing again and let a Smackdown sneak through. If you're a 2-turn user swapping in against a 3-turn user, such as in that example you saw, as opposed to normal good charge move timing being thrown after 1, 4, or 7 iterations of your fast move, due to that 1-turn offset from the swap, good timing is now after 5 iterations or 8 iterations of your 2-turn fast move. So for example, Sableye, since it gets to its move on 6 Shadow Claws, you're going to want to throw on 8 for good timing. And for example, something like a Wall Rain, which gets to an Icicle Spear after 5 Powder Snows, you're going to want to throw that Icicle Spear right away if you're facing a 3-turn user, which would be good timing. But back in this battle, we're able to take out that Togetic, which also got buffed in this new season, being given access to Fairy Wind, which is definitely a massive help for it, as it was limited to extra sensory and hidden power previously. So now I'm going to overfarm with my Kofi here, get up to 100 energy, take out the Bastiodon with the Shadow Ball, and in the back, it's that Medicham paired with the Bastiodon, and we're able to get sweet, sweet revenge right here. Since I don't have any shields left, I am going to throw this Dark Pulse to get their first one, and throw this next one on the CMP tie. Couldn't have made it to the Shadow Ball because as you see, this was a CMP tie, so I settled for the Dark Pulse, be able to get some extra damage off. Psychic takes out the Kofa, and from here we have this game, as we can just throw this Drill Run to take out the Medicham before they get to their Psychic, and we get a little bit of a revenge against a Bastiodon lead. GG's to my opponent. Alright, getting to the next battle. We lead Dugong into Defense Deoxys. We have 2 better answers for this in the back, so we're going to save swap into our Sableye, and we're met by a Dugong from our opponent. I'm going to load up, throw this foul play before they get to an Icy Wind to get this damage off before they're able to debuff me, and they give up a first shield. And that is perfectly fine, because now I have shield advantage, and I can let this go. I can build up extra energy, throw the return on good timing, since my opponent gave up a shield before, not expecting them to give one up now, which they don't. Does massive damage to my opponent, and I can let them farm down all the way, but Sableye is able to hang on, get to another foul play, which gets the second shield from my opponent. So now They swapped in a Dugong against my Sableye. Probably don't have a good answer against the Kofa. So I'm going to leave this game up to Kofa to sweep with 2 shields. Let's see what it can do. Opponent gets off 1 drill run. It gets off a 2nd drill run. But my Dugong does not care. Shrugs that off. Going to swap in my Coffin. They have a Walrein in the back. And this game is over. So my opponent concedes the match. GG's. Next battle. We lead Dugong into Sableye. Now this is one matchup I do have to stay in for, as my own Coffin doesn't want to see it, and Sableye, if I swap in my Sableye, I'd be behind energy. So we're going to stay in, and we're going to play this in the 0 shield, as Dugong does decently fine against the Sableye in the 0 shield. But now they hard swap in their Registeel. I'm going to throw off a drill run for a little bit of chip damage, and then bring in my Sableye here. This foul play will bring the Registeel quite low. And I'm actually going to give up a shield. I can survive this move, but I know that Sableye at full health with a ton of energy is an absolute nuisance to deal with. So we are able to get the farm down. See what my opponent does. They bring back in their own Sableye. And my opponent did get the Zap Cannon debuff, but my opponent still cannot really take 2 foul plays that well either way. So we will see them give up their first shield here. I let this go, knowing that I will survive their foul play and still be able to reach my own, which I do. See what my opponent wants to let this one go as well. They let it go, wanting to save their shield for what's in the back, and it's a Galarian Stunfisk. So running double steal, and this should be perfectly fine for us to close out, as they are going to be able to build up to the Earthquake. I showed it to respect it. They bait with a Rock Slide. Very nice bait. But unfortunately, that is not going to be able to save them, as the Shadow Ball will do some decent damage to the G-Fisk, so it does warrant their final shield. Now they are going to be able to land an Earthquake, and I'm going to farm up, throw the Shadow Ball as soon as I get it. Should have thrown on the CMP Tide to the Rock Slide, but that is perfectly fine, as they are basically forced to throw their Rock Slide right away anyways. Rock Slide takes out the Kofa, and we could commit to an Ice Shard down on the G-Fisk if they stay in, or if they swap it in their Sableye like they do, they're only going to be able to reach a foul play. We Ice Shard down, and we leave with the drill run loaded to take out the G-Fisk. As the drill run comes through, G-Fisk goes down, and that's a good game. GG's to my opponent. Next battle, we lead Dugong into Clefable. Again, this is another matchup where we do have to stay in, as our Sableye wants absolutely nothing to do with this. Now they farmed up to 7. This is enough for the Moonblast. They bait with a Meteor Beam, but that is perfectly fine. As now we're going to throw off this drill run for a little bit of chip damage onto the Jellicent. Really, I should have saved that, as if I swap in my Sableye, these Shadow Claws plus a foul play would have been enough to take it out anyways. So a little bit of a misplay on my part, but we are still in a pretty good position here. I throw this foul play on a little bit of awkward timing, but I do so in order to maximize my energy, because I'm not really expecting my opponent to give up a shield, which they don't, as they bring back in their Clefable, and we are just barely able to hang on and reach the return. See what my opponent wants to do, and they respect the return. Good counting on their end. But now the Clefable does get a nice farm down, which is a little unfortunate for us, so I will give up my final shield here as well. It's just another Meteor Mash. And now they're going to outpace to their next move as well, which does end up being the Moonblast. Does some hefty damage to my Dugong. And now they're going to swap in their own Ghost type, it looked like. Another Cofagrigus. And now this is a little bit iffy, because their Coffin has a shield advantage against mine. But the good news is they are now double debuffed. Normally, this Shadow Ball would absolutely obliterate the other Coffin, but because they are double debuffed, I'm able to hang on, get the Shadow Claw farm down, and now it is a commitment to fast moves here. I don't bother throwing a move since I know I'm not going to get to 2 either way, Just want to get off as much raw Shadow Claw damage as I possibly can, as we're able to get the Ice Shard down and take a very close one right there. GG's to my opponent. Next battle, we lead Dewgong into Defense Deoxys. We saw this lead before. We know what we've got to do. Swap into our Sableye. And there's that Noctowl. And now the interesting thing about a Sableye, a really high-ranked Noctowl and a really high-ranked Sableye, if your opponent throws one move and then tries to farm down, they should be able to, because they can live a return and a foul play. But against an attack-weighted Sableye and a really high-ranked Noctowl, they can't, as the additional damage from the return and foul play is just enough to take it out, which, as you see here, this is a very attack-weighted Sableye. It's able to take out the Noctowl and now take switch against the Defense Deoxys. And my Kofa is now able to come in, get that alignment against the DD, and we're going to see what my opponent has in the back that my Dewgong gets to get matched up against. They go for the Psycho Boost and Dip. They have an Altaria, and this match is long over as we're able to fire off the Shadow Ball, and now we can Ice Shard this Altaria all the way down. Not before they are able to reach a move, as it is the Moonblast and does some decent damage to Dewgong, but Dewgong is bulky, able to hang on, and now we get to spam off these Icy Winds against the DD. First Icy Wind does get their shield, and second Icy Wind, see if this wants to get their final shield as well, which it does, and now this game is just long over if it wasn't already, as the Defense Deoxys is double debuffed, but we still have 2 shields. And since they are double debuffed, I can let this go. I can survive this. And now we're loading up on more energy. I was thinking, you know, do I let this go? Do I 2 shield flex? But if it was a Thunderbolt, that would come very close to taking us out. So I decided to play it safe, shield it, and go for the Dark Pulse to take out the DD. GG's to my opponent. Next battle, we lead Dewgong into another DD. We've seen this twice before. We're going to go right into our Sableye. And this time, instead of a Noctowl, it's met with a Dunsparce. Again, Dunsparce is another one of those Pokemon that's been buffed for the new season, whereas before, Rollout did very pitiful amount of damage. Now, it got, I want to say it was like a 1 extra damage buff on Rollout. So it's a little more viable in terms of farm down potential. They do reach their next Joe run, not able to take us out, and we are very fortunate right there. We do get the new mechanic to allow us to get off that foul play. It's such a weird new mechanic. It works like 25% of the time, doesn't work 75% of the time. So I don't know what to tell you on that one. But we are able to get that, land the foul play, and now get to this Icy Wind, which will take out the Dunsparce. Dunsparce goes down. Now we're going to force swap right into our Kofa, and they have a double. Now you might think that this is top left worthy, 2 shields to 1. But if we make the right calls here, let's see what happens. We are able to correctly shield the payback, throw on good timing for this first Dark Pulse. Does do some hefty damage to the double, throw on good timing again. See, my opponent wants to let this one go or shield it, and they actually let it go, and now this actually opens up a win con for us. But I do have another call to make here first. It is another payback, so fantastic call by me, and we're just gonna commit to the Shadow Claw down. The Coffin farms down the double, leave with 100 energy, and oh my gosh, if you haven't seen Coffin put in work this video, I don't know what else to tell you, because it's just done absolutely incredible as we now Shadow Claw down the Deoxys and able to take this one. But who would have guessed that Cofagrigus wins the 2-to-1 shield against a double? Absolutely crazy. Next matchup, we lead Dewgong into Sableye. So previously, as I mentioned, against the other Sableye lead, we're going to stay in throw this Ice Wind right away, but my opponent throws after 7 Shadow Claws on good timing for the foul play. We're going to let it go as we can survive 2 foul plays after this Icy Wind debuff and take switch advantage, or shield advantage, whichever one my opponent wants to do. But since I am running an ABB line, I will be giving up switch advantage after I take out this Sableye, so I can come in with my own Sableye and not allow any extra and them to get any extra energy or head start. But my opponent gives up a shield here, so we're going to safe swap into our Sableye right away then. They are double debuffed, we can tank that foul play, and they bring in a Shadow Golbat. Very cool pick here. But unfortunately, that's not quite a Sableye answer, as they do throw this Poison Fang right away. This is resisted, we are going to be able to survive it, and just barely get to our final foul play to do some hefty damage on the Golbat, brings it into the red, and now we can farm down with our Coffin and see what their final Pokemon is in the back. But first, little bit of a fancy catch here. We're able to catch the Shadow Ball onto our Dugong, farm down the Golbat, and the opponent concedes the match. GG's. And that is the end of the video. So as you saw, Cofagrigus was able to put in a ton of work, was able to absolutely destroy those Medichams, and even fight back against the pesky normal types as well. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate you. If you enjoyed it, please drop a like, subscribe, and comment down below. Love to hear what you have to say. And with that, I'll catch you in the next one.